my girlfriend said. I love you, but I am not ready for the boring couple life. I want to feel young and wild before settling down with someone safe like you. So I gave her all the freedom she wanted while I started a life that she would never be a part of. My name is Diego. I'm 33 years old and I work as an insurance claims adjuster here in Madrid, living in a decent apartment in Alcorcon with my girlfriend, Valeria, who is 29 years old and works as a marketing assistant for a small agency downtown. We had been together for about 2 years, living together for the last 8 months, and I really thought we were building something solid. You know, the kind of relationship where you start talking about bigger apartments, maybe getting a dog, discussing vacation destinations for next summer. But apparently, while I was mentally planning our future, Valeria was feeling like a caged bird, desperate to spread her wings before settling into what she saw as the inevitable boredom of committed adult life. It started with small comments that I initially dismissed as normal relationship frustrations, complaints about our routine, like how we always watched Netflix on Friday nights instead of going out, how we had become too comfortable and predictable. She would scroll through Instagram showing me photos of her single friends at clubs or on spontaneous weekend trips, sighing dramatically and saying things like, I miss feeling alive, or when did we get so boring? I would suggest that we could go dancing or take a weekend trip ourselves, but she would dismiss these ideas with a wave of her hand, saying it was not the same when you are already a couple, because you cannot really experience that electric feeling of meeting new people or having unexpected adventures. The complaints intensified over several weeks, becoming more pointed and frequent until everything seemed to revolve around her feeling of being trapped by our domestic life. It bothered her to go grocery shopping together. She got irritated when I asked about her day, and she started staying out later with coworkers from her marketing job, coming home with stories about flirting with strangers in bars and how refreshing it felt to be seen as an individual instead of half of a couple. Her sister Monica, who works as a nurse and has always been the practical voice in her family, tried to talk some sense into her during one of their coffee dates, pointing out that the grass is greener syndrome was natural, but that throwing away a stable relationship for some fantasy of excitement was typically a mistake that people regret. But Valeria accused Monica of being jealous because she had been single for years and did not understand what it felt like to commit to someone before experiencing everything life had to offer. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night in late March when I was reviewing some complex insurance fraud cases for work, analyzing medical claims and property damage reports to determine which ones warranted further investigation. When Valeria sat down across from me at our kitchen table with this serious expression that immediately made my stomach drop. Diego, we need to have an honest conversation about us, she said. And I closed my laptop because nothing good ever starts with that phrase, giving her my full attention as I mentally prepared for whatever bombshell she was about to drop. She took a deep breath and launched into what felt like a rehearsed speech about how much she loved me and valued our relationship, but how she was starting to feel that she had never really lived her life as a single, independent woman. She had never had those wild stories her friends talked about. She had never experienced the thrill of uncertainty and possibility that comes with being free and available. I love you, Diego, and I do want our future together, she said, reaching out to squeeze my hand. But I need to feel young and wild before settling down with someone safe like you. The word safe hit me like a physical blow, and when I asked her to explain exactly what she meant by that, she told me that I was exactly the kind of man she wanted to marry someday. Stable, responsible, good with finances, the kind of guy who would never disappear or cause drama or break her heart, but that she needed to experience what it felt like to date other types of men first, more exciting and unpredictable men before she could truly appreciate what I offered. You are safe and stable, Diego. Exactly what I will want when I am ready to be serious and think about marriage and kids and mortgages and all those adult things, she explained with what she probably thought was a reassuring smile. But right now I just need some time to get this out of my system. She talked about wanting to go on girls' trips without feeling guilty, wanting to dance with other men at clubs, wanting to feel that thrill of butterflies in her stomach that she claimed had disappeared from our relationship because everything between us had become too predictable and comfortable. When I asked her what this meant for us practically speaking, she suggested we take a break, not a permanent breakup. She was quick to clarify, just some temporary space for her to explore, and discover who she was when she was not half of a couple, while knowing that I would be there when she was ready to get serious about building a real future together. "Just give me time to get this out of my system," she said, squeezing my hand tighter. "And then we can build something real and lasting, something I will truly appreciate because I will know what else is out there." I sat there, looking at this woman for whom I had been mentally shopping for engagement rings. This woman I had been considering adding to my work health insurance policy, and I realized that she saw me not as a partner, but as a retirement plan, something solid and boring to fall back on after she had had her fun with more exciting options. This is where I surprised everyone, including myself, with my response. The next morning, after Valeria had packed a bag and gone to stay with her sister Monica for a few days while we figured things out, I sat at that same kitchen table with my coffee and really thought about what she had said. Not the part about me being safe and boring, but the part about needing to get something out of her system before she could appreciate what we had. And it hit me like a lightning bolt. I also had things to get out of my system, dreams and experiences I had been putting off because I thought building a life with someone meant putting your individual ambitions in the back closet until retirement. So when Valeria texted me that afternoon asking if we could set some ground rules for our break, probably expecting me to negotiate terms about how long I would wait and what kind of contact we would maintain, I simply replied, "Take all the time you need, and I will do the same." She probably thought I meant I would spend the time working on myself to become the exciting boyfriend she wanted. Maybe take some cooking classes or learn guitar to impress her when she came back, but that was not my plan at all. You see, working in insurance claims teaches you about risk assessment and worst-case scenarios. And analyzing my situation as I would any complex claim, I realized that waiting for someone to decide I was worth their time was the highest risk investment I could make. Within a week, I had done something that probably sounds strange, but made perfect sense to me. I joined a support group for divorced people that met on Tuesday nights at a community center in downtown Madrid. Not because I was divorced, but because I thought these people had experience rebuilding their lives after relationships ended, and I needed that perspective more than I needed couples therapy or relationship advice. The group was led by this guy, Carlos, 35 years old, a divorced father who worked in business consulting and had this calm, direct way of talking about life after major disappointments that really resonated with me. "The biggest mistake I made after my divorce," Carlos told the group during my second session, "was sitting around waiting for my life to start over, instead of realizing it had already started the moment she left." That statement hit me like a revelation because I understood that Valeria leaving, even temporarily, was really the beginning of something new, not a pause in something old. Carlos introduced me to rock climbing, something I had always been curious about but never pursued because Valeria thought it was too dangerous and worried about the insurance implications if I got hurt, which I had always accepted because, yes, I work in claims and I know exactly how much medical bills can cost. But now, putting on climbing gear at an indoor facility in Los Rosas, feeling my muscles burn as I worked my way up artificial rock faces, I felt more alive than I had in months, not because I was trying to become someone else to win her back, but because I was finally doing things I actually wanted to do. I also signed up for salsa classes, which was partly ironic since she had always complained that we never danced, but mostly because I had genuinely wanted to learn for years and had been too self-conscious to suggest it when we were together. The instructor, a woman named Carmen, who taught at a studio near Puerta del Sol, paired me with different partners each week, and I discovered I actually had rhythm and that dancing with someone new each class was exciting, in a way that had nothing to do with romantic interest and everything to do with the pure joy of movement and music. Meanwhile, Valeria was posting Instagram stories from clubs in Malesana and Chueca, always with the same group of single friends and always featuring this personal trainer named Brad, who worked at her gym and seemed to be the physical embodiment of everything she thought was missing in our relationship. Spontaneous, confident, the kind of guy who would suggest midnight trips to Toledo or weekend trips to Barcelona without worrying about budgets or vacation days. Her posts had this forced quality, as if she were trying to convince herself as much as her followers that she was living her best life. Lots of selfies laughing too hard and captions about living in the moment that felt desperate rather than genuine. But here is what really bothered her. According to Monica, who started calling me occasionally to check in, My social media was showing a completely different version of the story she had expected. Instead of sad Diego, sitting at home with takeout containers waiting for her to come back, my Instagram showed climbing adventures with my new friends from the support group, salsa dancing videos where I was clearly having a great time, hiking trips to Sierra de Guadarrama on weekends when she assumed I would be home missing her. She keeps asking me why you seem so happy without her, Monica told me during one of our conversations. And honestly, Diego, I think she expected you to be more broken up about this. But the truth was, I was not broken up, I was liberated. This is where reality started to hit her like a freight train. About 6 weeks into her wild phase, the glamorous single life Valeria had been chasing started to lose its shine faster than a cheap piece of jewelry. Brad, the personal trainer she had been featuring in all her Instagram stories, turned out to be exactly what you would expect from a guy who spends his days flexing in front of mirrors and hitting on women at the gym. Charming for about 2 dates, but ultimately only interested in hookups and had zero interest in anything resembling an emotional connection or genuine conversation. When Valeria tried to introduce some depth to their interactions, suggesting they go to a museum or have dinner somewhere that did not involve loud music and expensive cocktails, Brad would either change the subject or straight up tell her she was overthinking it, and they should just keep it fun and casual. Her party friends, who had seemed so exciting and spontaneous when she was watching them from the outside of a committed relationship, turned out to be exhausting in their relentless pursuit of the next club, the next event, the next Instagram-worthy moment, always chasing some external validation instead of finding genuine fulfillment in their lives. These women, mostly in their mid to late 20s, seemed stuck in a perpetual state of manufactured excitement, constantly planning elaborate nights out that inevitably ended with someone crying in a bathroom, starting drama over nothing, or spending money they did not have on clothes they would wear once for photos. Valeria found herself missing the simple pleasure of a quiet night at home, missing having someone who actually cared about her day-to-day experiences instead of just wanting her as a wingwoman for their latest romantic conquest. The novelty of random men buying her drinks and trying to impress her with terrible pickup lines had worn off quickly, especially when she realized that most of these interactions were hollow and forgettable, lacking any real substance or potential for meaningful connection. So naturally, she started reaching out to me, testing the waters with casual texts that started innocently, asking how I was, mentioning something funny that reminded her of an inside joke we shared, sending pictures of places we had visited together with captions like, "Remember when we came here?" But here is what she did not expect. I was genuinely busy, not sitting around waiting for her messages like some loyal dog waiting for scraps of attention. When she texted me on a Friday night asking if I wanted to get coffee and catch up, I was actually packing gear for a weekend climbing trip to Peyton's de Arriba with my new group of friends from the support sessions and the climbing gym. When she suggested we could watch our old favorite show together sometime, I was at salsa practice getting ready for a social dance event Carmen had invited all her students to. When she called me on a Tuesday night around 10, probably expecting to find me at home alone and available to listen to her relationship problems with Brad, I was out with Carlos and several other guys from the group, having dinner and discussing our plans for a hiking trip through the Pyrenees we had been organizing for months. "You sound different," she said during one of our phone conversations, and I could hear confusion and something that might have been panic in her voice. "Like happier. Are you seeing someone?" The question caught me off guard because I had honestly been on a few casual dates. Nothing serious, just coffee or dinner with women I had met through my new social circles, but it was not about replacing her or proving a point. It was about discovering who I was when I was not constantly managing someone else's emotional needs and insecurities. "I am just living my life, Valeria," I told her. And the simplicity of that statement seemed to throw her completely off balance, because she had apparently expected me to be in some kind of suspended animation, waiting for her to finish sowing her wild oats and come back to claim her place as the center of my universe. "But what about us?" she asked. And I could practically hear her mental gears grinding as she tried to process the fact that I had not been sitting around like a faithful golden retriever, keeping our apartment exactly as she had left it, keeping myself available for when she decided she was ready to settle down with her safe option. The conversations became more frequent and more desperate as she realized that the life she had walked out on, the stability, the genuine partnership, The comfort of being truly known and valued by someone was not something she could just pause and retrieve when it was convenient. She had expected me to remain static while she explored dynamic experiences, but instead she found that I had become the dynamic one, while her exploration had left her feeling empty and disconnected from anything meaningful. Fast forward 6 months, and this is where it all came full circle. Valeria called me on a Thursday night in September, her voice carrying that familiar tone of someone who has made a decision and expects the world to accommodate it, asking if we could meet for dinner because she had something important to discuss with me. I agreed to meet her at a small restaurant in Malasana, partly out of curiosity and partly because I had genuinely moved past any anger or resentment and could approach the conversation from a place of genuine calm. When she walked in, I immediately noticed how different she looked, not physically, but in her energy, her confidence, the way she carried herself. The wild, adventurous woman who had left me 6 months earlier to explore her options had been replaced by someone who looked tired, uncertain, maybe even a little defeated. We ordered our food and made small talk for a few minutes, but I could see she was building up to something. The way she kept fidgeting with her napkin and looking around the restaurant as if she were searching for the right words written on the walls. She finally took a deep breath and launched into what was clearly another rehearsed speech, this time about how much she had learned about herself during our time apart, how valuable the experience had been for her personal growth, but how she had come to realize that what we had together was rare and special and worth fighting for. "I am ready now, Diego," she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "Ready to be serious, ready to build the future we talked about. I got all that wild stuff out of my system, and now I can truly appreciate what you offer." The irony was not lost on me that she was essentially asking me to be grateful that she had decided I was worthy of her attention now that she had confirmed there was nothing better available. She talked about how exhausting it had been to be constantly on, with people who did not really know her, how superficial most of her interactions had become, how much she missed having someone who understood her moods and her humor and her quirks without needing constant explanation. "You were right to wait," she said with a smile that probably would have worked 6 months ago. "And now we can pick up where we left off, but better because I know what I want now." I listened to her whole presentation without interrupting, watching this woman who had once been the center of my universe try to reclaim a position that no longer existed. And when she finished speaking, I was quiet for a long moment, not because I was considering her offer, but because I was marveling at how completely different I felt sitting across from her. "Valeria," I said finally, "I think there has been a misunderstanding. I was not waiting for you." The confusion that crossed her face was almost comical, as if I had told her that gravity had stopped working or that Tuesday had been canceled. "What do you mean you were not waiting for me? We agreed to take a break so I could figure things out, and now I have." I explained as gently as I could that a break had meant exactly that to me. A break, not a pause, not a timeout where I would sit on the bench while she played the game. I told her about Carlos and the support group, about the climbing and the salsa dancing, about the friends I had made and the confidence I had gained, about the women I had dated and the one I was currently seeing seriously, a financial advisor named Teresa, who appreciated me exactly as I was right now, not as someone to settle for after exhausting better options. "But I chose you," Valeria said, and I could hear desperation creeping into her voice as she realized that her careful plan to have her cake and eat it too was falling apart in real time. "I could have stayed with Brad or any of those other guys, but I chose to come back to you." That is when I understood that she still did not get it. She still saw our relationship as something she could put in storage and retrieve when it was convenient. She still thought of me as her insurance policy instead of a person with his own agency and choices. "You did not choose me 6 months ago," I said, keeping my voice calm but firm. "You chose to explore your options while keeping me as a backup plan. And that taught me something important about the difference between being someone's security blanket and being genuinely wanted." I explained that I had learned to value myself enough to want someone who chose me first, not someone who chose me after confirming there was nothing better available. The woman in front of me was not the same person I had fallen in love with 2 years ago, but then again, neither was I. I had become someone who understood that real love does not involve being treated like a retirement plan, someone who deserved to be with a person who valued what we had in the present moment instead of seeing it as something to settle for in the future. When we left the restaurant that night, Valeria looked stunned, like someone who had expected to walk into a familiar room and found it completely remodeled. She had gambled our relationship on the assumption that I would always be there waiting and lost everything when she discovered I had used our time apart to become someone who would not accept being anyone's second choice ever again.